Hello, everyone. My name is Sequoia Burleson Ross, and today I will be discussing rabies. Rabies has historically been recorded in many ancient texts, but it wasn't until 1804 when George Zink first proved that the rabies disease was transmitted by saliva. He did so by conducting experiments on rabid animals, collecting their saliva, and injecting it into healthy animals. The first vaccine wasn't developed until 1885 by Louis Pasteur. He had studied rabid rabbits and collected antibodies from their spinal cord. The first person to have received the vaccine and survive was a 9-year-old boy by the name of Joseph Meester. Since there are many species of the virus, it is often referred to by the genus name of Lysovirus. The structure of all the rabies viruses is about 180 nanometers long by 75 nanometers wide. The shape is often described as a bullet or a rod shape. There are two layers to the body. The inside layer is the nucleocapsid that contains the nucleic acid, which is a single strand of RNA. The outer envelope is a membrane that contains about 400 glycoprotein spikes. The entire virus is made up of 5 different proteins. However, since there's no mechanism for proofreading the nucleic acid, there is a chance for a high mutation rate, and this allows for not only the myriad species of viruses, but also the inability for an individual to develop any sort of immunity against one virus. The way that this virus goes about infecting is different from normal viruses. There is a very low count of viruses that are initially introduced into the body. Once the bite breaks through the first line of defense into the skin, instead of flooding the system into the blood where the immune system has a chance to respond right away, the viral count is not only low, but it goes straight into the skeletal muscle and connective tissue. Here it is where it multiplies, it infects the cells, and is able to utilize those cells to multiply. But during this period, it is also known as the incubation period. And during this time, there's about, on average, 30 to 90 days of the virus just replicating without any sort of immune response. After this, the virus then reaches the motor neurons where it can travel up the peripheral nervous system and into the central nervous system. Once it reaches the central nervous system, that's when symptoms start to evolve, and by then it is too late to treat. And 99% of the cases end up with death because this is a fatal disease. Here are a couple diagrams to represent the way the rabies virus works. The first diagram up on the top shows how usually it would be a dog, but an animal bite where an affected animal bites and breaks the skin of the body. The virus then replicates at the site. It then travels up the peripheral nervous system, and then it replicates and it infects the brain, and then it is able to travel into other organs. This is another diagram of the cell where the host cell that the virus will invade. It is kind of blurry to read, but first there is absorption and then penetration. Once it is within the capsule inside the cell, there's the uncoating where the first envelope layer comes off, and then the RNA is now available to enter into the cytoplasm and into the cell where transcription, translation can occur, the processing and replication of everything in the cytoplasm before assembly, where then the virus is able to come budding out of the cell. This disease is worldwide. Rabies is frequently transmitted by dog bites. However, within the United States, because we have such a high rate of domestic pet vaccination and an increase of wildlife vaccination because of our wildlife management, there's a reduced number of cases in the United States. So the most common vector in the United States is actually the species, the silver-haired bat. Annually around the world, though, there are about 15 million people that get the treatment for rabies. And not every case gets treatment, though. So about 60,000 people die each year from rabies. Out of all the cases, the US only has about 2 deaths per year from rabies. Other wildlife that are known to spread the disease include raccoons, skunks, bats, foxes. The disease is able to inhibit and infect any mammal. Understanding how the immune system works, the rabies virus is transmitted through an animal bite, especially from bats or dogs. But there are other variations of transmission that can occur that are super rare. This includes specifically cornea transplants. There's also been another case where scientists in a lab studying the rabies virus accidentally dropped a pressurized aerosol container that broke, containing the rabies virus. Here is a map of the strains. So since I had mentioned that there are many different variations of the virus and different species, they are often referred to by the most common mammal that gets infected. So on the East Coast, the most common strain of rabies is the raccoon strain. In the central and a little bit on the West Coast are usually strains from skunk strains. And then in Alaska and down here in Arizona, it's from the fox. There's dotted lines to represent the old boundary and the new boxed shapes to represent a newer boundary. These compare two different ranges of 5 years. Down here is a specific species of fox, so that has actually decreased in size fairly recently of its spread of virus. This is a line graph to represent the trends of the different species of viruses. So there's common with the raccoon variant is in red. This one has the highest peak, but also has the steepest decline over the years. And then the skunk, there's skunks with the skunk variant and just skunks in total with the rabies virus. And it's also declined over years and has shifted. The one that has actually inclined a little bit, but still has a small negative trend is with bats. This is the second most common animal to cause transmission. And foxes is fairly uncommon. Here's another map representing the United States and all the bats that have rabies. The colored sections are areas where they had tested bats locally, while all the red dots are positive rabies cases. To treat rabies, it can prove a little difficult. First, you have to test. The most common test that is used is the direct fluorescent antibody test. There are several other tests that may be performed listed here. Once the person gets tested positive, usually they also want to ensure that that animal that actually broke the skin also tested positive. However, there are circumstances in which you may not know, so therefore it can be concluded that it is imperative enough to be able to treat for rabies. There are some people that have a high risk job that are able to get vaccinated beforehand, such as wildlife management caretakers, anyone involved with wild animals. There are other situations as well. However, most people are not pre-vaccinated. So once they get the bite, they have to immediately go to the hospital and then get treated with the post-exposure prophylaxis, which is also known as PEP. These are a series of anti-rabies vaccines and immune globulin injections. This allows the body to be able to make its own antibodies against the rabies virus before true infection takes place into the nervous system. The original Pasteur treatment, the original vaccine, has since been replaced with human diploid cell vaccine, which allows, these are actually antibodies that are human antibodies that are grown within chick embryos. These injections involve 4 injections over a 14-day period. This gives the person basically a chance of passive immunity. There's also human rabies immune globulin injections that also insist in the passive immunity because they are antibodies harvested from people that have already been immunized against rabies. There is a chance for adaptive immunity from those that have built up a natural active immunity from the infection of a non-lethal strain of rabies, which is very, very uncommon, very rare. But they've been found to prove a defense against future infection of even lethal rabies. There have been more experiments that are being conducted to prove the possibility of this, as well as study other ways to encourage this through future vaccines. The main way to prevent the spread of rabies is to vaccinate animals. Luckily, with the United States having such a high domestic vaccination rate, we have significantly reduced our rabies cases. However, in a lot of poorer countries, there's a lot of stray dogs, and this is why dogs are the most common cause of infection. So, being able to catch and vaccinate any sort of animal against rabies will help reduce the spread of rabies, but also as a person to avoid wild animals and to recognize the signs of a rabid animal will help reduce the chance of infection. Otherwise, those that have been infected have to get treated. In all, rabies is a zoonotic virus. This means it transfers between species. It infects any mammal that comes in contact. It is spread by a bite, and it is found within the saliva. Once infected, majority of the time, the virus is fatal, especially by the time it reaches the central nervous system. To treat this system immediately, first is good to wash out the wound. It is to use soap, and then to, as soon as you can, get into a hospital to get treated with a series of vaccines. Again, to prevent this is to vaccinate other animals or to just avoid wild animals in total. There's a map of the higher countries that have the most amount of rabies to represent the spread of distribution. There's an average of every 9 minutes a new death. There are a lot of young children that often get rabies. Vaccination is the best way to prevent the spread of the disease. So, in all, that is rabies in its unique variation. And to reference or share all my references, there have been several articles, journals, and books written and studying about rabies. For any questions, feel free to please comment and let me know. And let me know if there's any areas that I can improve. Thank you all for listening, and I really appreciate it. Happy holidays.